we just wrapped with Sarah Doody. It was an amazing conversation. My favorite part of it, we talked about people over tools. Hey, you could be great at using something online, but if you can't have a conversation with somebody about how to make something better, you're going to be lost. Dan, what do you think about this episode?
Oh, I had so much fun talking to Sarah. Um, Things that really stuck out to me were her advice for designers who are looking to grow their careers, especially around making sure that you're focusing on those fundamentals, the things that are 10, 15-year type skills, communication, and also the advice she had for hiring managers. The thing that really popped out for me was making sure that your job descriptions are really clear, relatable. Talking about the what's going on in like the day to day of the job. Great way to screen and find awesome candidates.
Yeah. Are you ready to train to the gaps that you find in your own candidates? This is an awesome episode. We can't wait for you to hear it. Let's go. So today on our podcast, we are excited to have Sarah Doody. Sarah is the CEO of Career Strategy Lab. It's a groundbreaking UX incubator that's helped thousands of people find new jobs. Really honorable thing, helping people find new jobs. So we are really excited to get into more about the job market and specifically learning more about the skill sets needed to succeed in the world of UX today. So welcome, Sarah. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited for this chat.
We're gonna have a great time. We're gonna dive right into it. So the product design space is in a little bit of flux. You've mentioned, and you are on tons of podcasts. So if you are a Sarah Doody fan, the content is out there, right? You've mentioned that people need to treat their resumes and careers like a product. What advice can you give designers to follow that guidance?
Yes. So I've been talking about treating your career like a product, I don't know, since 2018, 19, something like that. I think one of my first posts was on the Envision blog about this years ago. But when you think about it, you know, in the same way that we buy products or hire people to perform services for us, that is exactly what's happening when companies are hiring UX designers, product designers, researchers, whomever. And so when you think of yourself and your career as a product, you can really leverage a lot of timeless strategies that we know work for big companies, small companies of different industries, etc. Um, so when it comes to treating your career like a product, especially for people that are in the middle of a job search, some of the tips, and I'm going to try and narrow it down to 3, so interrupt me if I go too long, but one of them would be um, recognizing that a successful product needs to do 3 things. It needs to have great design, right? Because a product with great design and bad marketing probably isn't going to work out. So it needs to have design, it needs to have solid marketing, and it needs to have solid sales too. And if you think of a Venn diagram, at the center of it is you, or what I call the product of you. And so if you're stuck in your job search, to kind of reduce that overwhelm of like, where do I begin and how do I even troubleshoot why I'm not getting hired? Think about it in those 3 circles, right? Is it the design of me as the product? Is it the marketing of me as a product? Or is it the sales of me as a product? So that's one of the things. Should we
Okay.
pause there or should I keep going?
No, keep going. Intrigue.
All right. So that's number 1. Number 2 would be to try and cut out the noise. And by that, I mean, you log into Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, and it is just overflowing with career advice, some valid, some just clickbait, etc. And it's really hard to vet this information. I totally understand that. But one of the things you have to be mindful of is maintaining a balance of collecting information and actually acting on it, right? Because I myself am so guilty of this. I save like a wild amount of LinkedIn and Instagram posts, to inspire me in my business and my personal life. Rarely do I ever go back to all that stuff I saved and like review it and actually read it and act on it, right? But I feel like I'm doing something because I'm saving all this stuff. Um, So maintain that balance of information gathering versus taking action. And then let's see.
Number
The
three.
third one would be to um vet who you listen to. And the number one tip I could give people, and I just gave this yesterday on a coaching call, but if someone says your resume needs to be one page, your portfolio must be a website, you should not quit a job before 1 year is up, before spending a year at that company. A lot of people just hear that advice and just do it, and they think it's like a rule in the world. And I really challenge people to ask that person why, right? Why should my resume be a one page? And if they can't explain that, then it's probably just their opinion and they posted it on LinkedIn to try and get more followers. The other thing you could think of too is what proof does that person have that that advice works, right? Like if someone tells you to make a one-page resume, but they haven't helped anyone get hired or get interviews, how do you know that works? So those are my three for now.
Oh man, that's awesome. There's so much to unpack there. First off, I wish I'd met you when I was doing my job search because I would have gone much better. And I feel like there were some things there that were just like good product knowledge about like, hey, like actually verify what you're getting.
Right.
So maybe this is kind of related to, number two and, noise, but, a lot going on now about, current economic situation getting, a bit uncertain. And I'm wondering, if you have any advice for folks who are in the process of either looking for new careers or actively job searching, how to navigate those waters.
Yeah. The elephant in the room, things are very turbulent right now. Not just at big tech companies, but in general, right? Like government jobs. Obviously, that is, an issue currently. I think one of the things that people need to be mindful of is looking for jobs outside of quote big tech companies. And I know a lot of people have aspirations like to have Google on their resume or whatever company is kind of on your dream list. At the same time, there are so many companies that need UX people that are not in big tech. And if you expand your job search to these industries, you may also find there is better work-life balance potentially, better salaries, better benefits, potentially even better job security. And so industries that come to mind for me, and I have a whole podcast episode about this, so I'll send it to you after and we can link to it. But finance is an industry that I consistently see people getting hired at, whether I would also lump insurance into that too. So JP Morgan Chase, Liberty Mutual, Wells Fargo, lots of those, Fidelity, for example. I consistently see people getting hired at those companies for many types of roles: UX writing and content strategy, research, of course, just product design, etc. Um, Other industries that come to mind, healthcare. I mean, we're seeing a lot in terms of you could lump health insurance in there too, but also just personal health products, whether it's like diabetes apps or products or heart stuff like Cardia, or even just the push that Apple has towards health or things like Peloton, etc. So that's another industry. And then another one that really stands out to me right now is okay, travel. We're starting to travel more. It's picking up. And also, I think, and this is just a hypothesis I have, but especially around not just like flights and hotels and things, but companies that are helping people travel together and meet people. So, like group travel and curated experiences and things. There's a lot of business to consumer products out there that are doing this. Especially when you think of like this loneliness epidemic that maybe you've been reading about. And I think travel is an interesting solution to that. Of course, there's financial barriers to do that, but as an industry, the other one I would say is education, and I would lump things like software that universities and colleges use to deliver online education, but also things like Masterclass, Khan Academy, etc. I think those are going to continue to grow. And side note for everyone, like every month, the US Department of Labor Statistics issues a jobs report and they'd say where growth has been happening. And so that could be a good thing just to pay attention to in the headlines every month and then go look at those industries and see, you know, is it finance? Is it whatever this month? And kind of follow the money, so to speak.
I want to acknowledge an elephant in the room. We have a world-class UX researcher on the podcast, and I started out with a question about how to productize something, and the career-trained engineer asked a question about economics. So I think we we have to make sure that we're maximizing the value of having a UX researcher here. What I'm wondering, what are you seeing, especially maybe just picking, sticking with, the one of the big targets of Career Strategy Lab, UX jobs. What are these industries? Maybe we stick with like finance and healthcare. What are these industries noticing now about the value of UX research or
Mm,
design that has increased these opportunities for people in that occupation?
that is a great question. And I have not done specific research on this, so I'm going to give um, my
We only want opinions
anecdotal
here. We only want
and
opinions here. This is not a fact-based place, okay?
yes, anecdotal and just hypotheses. So I think they're realizing um the importance of it's so cliche, but like nailing the customer experience to help increase engagement because when you think about it, it's very expensive to acquire a customer. I mean, I know this from my own business. And if I can get a customer, I want to keep them. I don't want to spend all kinds of money as, fidelity, for example, to get someone to bring all their investments over to me and then have them bounce a year later, right? So recognizing that, I think too, um, maybe there's a situation where they are realizing the companies and the people at the companies are realizing that the cost of not investing in user experience and research specifically leads to so much rework, right? And we've all experienced this in a company or currently, right? Where companies don't invest in UX or they don't invest in research. And then they spend days, weeks, months, years in this just like hamster wheel of redoing, fixing, etc., because they built the wrong thing first because it was some person's idea over in sales and marketing or something, but they never tested it and now they have to like backtrack. So those are two reasons why I would guess they're investing in UX. But I'm going to start asking my people who get hired and try and figure that out a little more.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Homework. That's what we like to give here.
Yes.
Um, you mentioned engagement, and I do think that there is this kind of revert back to people used to refer to the heart framework all the time, but it's become a little bit of a dated model. But mentioning, anything around adoption and engagement, it seems like how do we get people in the front door and how do we get them to stay?
Mm.
I think maybe these industries kind of thought in the past, maybe we were the best option or we were one of the big three. So we didn't have to worry about these metrics as much. But we see more and more market disruptors coming in and doing things, in that industry and operating, maybe a focus on crypto or a focus on what younger professionals are more interested in. And having more targeted audiences means that they're pulling away from these larger groups. So I think that, focusing is something that's going to change the way that you measure adoption and engagement is going to be big. Knowing that maybe people are coming back to these going moving into new industries, what are the new skill sets that designers should be working on that are going to help them succeed in this new market?
Um, it's not becoming a Figma expert. I think there is this um fixation on software I often see with people, and I would say methodology, right? People early in their career trying to know everything about Figma and memorize, every single process out there. And let's face it, there's a new like spin on some decades old process coming out every month, it seems. And so trying not to spend all of their time and energy on those things and thinking about what the timeless skills are that they are going to be able to use 10, 15 years from now. And, early in my career, I was like trying to become an expert at Photoshop and Illustrator and all that when we made wireframes and things in that software. But I remember thinking to myself at one point, like, I don't think I need to be able to use Photoshop and Illustrator to 100% of its capacity. I just need to use it enough to like get my ideas on paper and do my job. Um, and in hindsight, in my career, and of course, case study of one, but the timeless skills that have served me really well have been writing has been huge. And that doesn't mean you need to be publishing essays on Medium every week. But even just when you're writing an email before you hit send, thinking like, what could I do to make this clearer? Could I add a bulleted list? Could I break up a big giant paragraph into smaller paragraphs? Like, it's so nerdy, but that is what I think about every time before I hit send. Also things like, let's see, business, right? It doesn't mean you need to go get an MBA, but it does mean that you need to be able to be comfortable in um, rooms, so to speak, where discussions are happening that maybe you know nothing about. And, coming from an agency world at one point in my career, I was thrown into projects I knew nothing about. Like, I remember being at meetings, at BlackRock and Dow Jones and stuff, and I was like, "I have no idea what they're talking about." But by asking the right questions and listening, I was able to get up to speed pretty quickly. Um, I know those are a little bit vague, but I think the emphasis on it's not software, it's not methodology, it's really about these timeless skills. And I would also say building relationships with people at companies, whether that's your peers or even clients in the agency world. And those relationships can also fast track your ability to get up to speed on the business, extract important information from those people, or have them point you to the right people in the companies.
That's awesome. I love that. And kind of brings back to a conversation we had on the pod a ways back about the importance of human skills and like having those foundations.
Yeah.
That, like those are the things that really drive success, and frameworks are something that guide you on your design journey. But it's having the foundation and bottom of the pyramid there is really critical.
Exactly.
So I want to kind of flip it around, right? 'Cause we're talking about companies that maybe are new to the importance of design. What advice would you have for hiring managers in those companies who are looking to onboard designers and try and grow their business through strong engagement in visual design?
Yeah. I love this question because 2 or maybe 3 years ago, I did some hiring. So companies would hire me to optimize their job description and then post the description, vet the initial candidates, and like feed them a short list essentially, right? Like I guess kind of a recruiter, but also like I don't even know what I would call myself. But anyway, thinking to what we did because we were we were able to hire people in 3 weeks. Like, from the moment of having a call with the company, getting the job description, posting it, going through 2 or 300 applicants, which probably 50% of them were never qualified to begin with. But thinking as to what we did, in the job description, one of the sections we had was something along the lines of, like, a day in the life or like a typical week in this role or something like that. And one of the things that I think job descriptions get wrong is it's kind of just a kitchen sink of responsibilities. And half the time it is just cut and pasted from the last time they hired for that role or the job description that their colleague gave them from last month or something. And I understand why that happens. Job descriptions are not exciting to write necessarily, but if you really think about, okay, what is this person going to be doing on a kind of weekly, monthly, quarterly, however far you want to zoom out basis, that starts to get you thinking into a little bit more specifics. And I would also add, think about if someone was previously in that role, spend some time reflecting on like what made that person great and what was not great about that person or what did they lack, right? And think about if you need to integrate some of that into the job description also. Because I think if people thought about it less as just like kitchen sink of responsibilities and more in terms of the literal, like day to day, et cetera, and through the lens of whoever has been in that role in the past, they can get a more specific job description. And then once that job description is locked in, um, one of the things that I really wish companies would do on the job descriptions and when they post on LinkedIn, like, hey, my team is hiring, blah, 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 at the top, like in a very obvious place, put kind of like knockout criteria. If and for people that don't know what that is, when you're recruiting for say user research interviews or something, you often have these knockout questions, which mean if I want to only interview people in New York State, that's going to be one of my first questions. And if you're in Ohio, you're not coming to my research study because I don't want to talk to people in Ohio. And so think about what the knockout criteria are for that job, and that could be location, right? Like, state, country, etc. It's also things like remote, but get specific. Like, is it 100% remote? Is it remote if you live in New York State, but not if you live in California? Is it remote and you have to come to the office 3 times a week? So if you can put that stuff higher up in the job description, that hopefully it's not going to because people are just going to click apply, apply, apply. But hopefully you're going to knock some people out. And as the person hiring, you're going to reduce the number of questions and comments you get on LinkedIn posts like, if I live in California, can I apply for the role? And also, if someone asks that and it's on the job description that you can't apply if you're in California, it says to me, like, that person didn't read the job description. They're not very detail oriented. Maybe that is not a good first impression? So those are some of the tips.
Oh man, that's
That
yeah,
was a
that's
lot.
tricky. But yeah, I mean, it really makes me think about every job description that I've ever read or hit it in writing. Would you
Send me
so
your next one, and I'll do a glance.
but so with that, right? Would you recommend almost having like a narrative of like here's what you would be doing with like kind of tangible examples in the job description?
Yeah, like, if you can speak about it, um, ideally, you could talk about, like, current projects that person might be working on, like, maybe also envision it, like, in your first 90 days, right? Some companies have, like, kind of a 90-day I I don't even know what we're supposed to call it anymore, but 90-day period where, people especially if it's contract to hire, right? But I would think about it in that first 90 days. That's a whole quarter, like, what are the impacts and results and outcomes that maybe you hope this person is able to achieve in the first 90 days. And if you want to zoom out further, then go for it?
Super cool.
Yeah.
I I'm thinking a lot about people hitting apply, 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 and if we know they're gonna do that,
Yep.
right? What do we need to be prepared for when evaluating resumes or just getting ready to hire and fill a role? One of the things that we've been privileged enough to be able to do some hiring recently, and one of the things that I need to evaluate is what am I ready to train to?
Mm,
Who can I when I'm thinking about knockout criteria, who can I hire knowing I'm suspecting that they've got a gap in their skill set? Can I actually fill that skill set? Right? Maybe they
yeah.
could be great for the job, but I'm not ready to train. So is that on them? Is that on me? That it puts a little bit of onus on the hiring manager to just be prepared to handle those gaps when you have somebody come in because you don't want to miss out on good talent because you're not prepared to train them up, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, that's a great point.
Also, not just what's on you, but also what other resources do you have, right? So what other, could you say, hey, when you come in, we want you to go get your certified Scrum product owner, right? Or what other certifications can help fill some of those gaps? So it doesn't need to be all on you, but you do need to be ready to close gaps for talented resources.
Yep.
Cool.
I love that. And it that could even be great to put in the job description. Like in your first 90 days, you'll be expected to get Scrum certification, do XYZ, et cetera, and for people that maybe aren't excited about that, that might be enough to make them not apply.
Okay. We're going to get out of the realm of UX research for our last question.
All right.
This is, or out of the realm of UX hiring for our last question. I actually want to get into UX research. So remember, selfishly, Dan and I, product guys, right? We want to know from a product perspective, what is the best way for us to leverage our UX resource? What are the decisions that we can expect them to help us make? What are the things that we expect them to uncover that we're not going to find? What should we ideally be expecting from a great relationship with our UX research partner?
Oh, from the research partner. Okay. I think for the research, you want to have them involved in conversations like day one, ideally. Um, and maybe you do, but what I often see, and you probably see this as well, is that oftentimes product ideas are formulated and then the researcher is brought in almost like an afterthought, or maybe even after the feature is launched and it's more of like a validation versus bringing the researcher in to figure out, is this even the right thing to build in the first place? Um, that would be one of the things, but I'm curious, like, how do you guys typically work, and where does research fall into your workflow?
Biggest thing for us right now is we want to make sure that we're hitting the right target. And I think that that's where you're kind of getting at, was saying, like, what is the feature that's the most important?
Yes.
I think a lost art in product is we've been very focused. Everybody wants to understand, what are we doing from a tactical perspective, like from the work breakdown on, right? We want to start looking ahead, right? What is our roadmap? What are we building that's going to make a difference either in market, that's going to help us generate new revenue, right? Reduce the cost to serve, or protect new revenue. And when I think about protecting new revenue, I think about really applying and doubling down to our current user base, to our current like heavy user base. So
Mhm.
what I want to know is, am I hitting the right target? Am I, for our advocates, for the people that are out there promoting our product on their own, what are the things what are the things that they're invested in, and how can we double down on that? But also, what are their gaps? What is the feedback that they're willing to give us that says, here are the things that this doesn't do for me, or here are the integrations that I need
Mhm.
in order to, use your tool more effectively.
Yep. What one of the things uh, I did a talk or a workshop at, I don't know, UX London or something years ago, and it was really about how do you create a cadence of research. So to your point, you maintain this like regular, consistent pulse on what's happening with each segment that you want to understand, whether it's, super engaged users, people who are dabbling on a free trial and don't convert, etc. And, every company might have a different cadence, right? Like maybe it's every month or every quarter or every June or something like that, but really thinking about the the people that you want to be understanding, and then how frequently do you want to be kind of getting a state in the union on them, so to speak. But one of the other things that I see companies do, and like software I use every day, like Active Campaign is this email software that's like, I don't know, MailChimp and HubSpot and all of them a little more enterprisey. But they have like, I think it's a Slack group, and they have like a community idea board and stuff. And if I was the user researcher or product person on that team, I would just be living in there and lurking in there, because that is where you are going to be learning so much. And you're not having to recruit people. Like when you think about it, how much time in research is spent like finding the right people and scheduling the interviews and making the survey and this and that. And having a user community of some type and just lurking there and being very active in it is such an amazing way to maintain a pulse on, the literal users. Stakeholders in the company is a totally different other beast, but for users, it's just such an easy, cheap way to stay in contact with them. So yeah, maybe that gives you guys some ideas.
I like it. One of my takeaways from this was you mentioned being comfortable in business, and you're not comfortable in business if you're not taking advantage of free stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
so this was awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got one last question that Dan's going to hit you with, but I
Ooh,
just
okay.
want to talk about some of my takeaways. I did already mentioned being comfortable in business, and I think that is, our colleague Matt LeMay. I say colleague because he's our friend. He doesn't actually work for us. But Matt LeMay, the first chapter of his new book is "The Business Is Your Business," and I think that like everybody remembering what you participate in and what you're trying to help grow, it doesn't need to be at the forefront of your mind, but it needs to be something that you're conscious of, and you need to be able to participate in those conversations. So being comfortable talking about business. You mentioned people over tools and timeless skills. I really like that. Like, yes, you can be great at Figma, but if you can't hold a conversation with somebody, it's going to be tough for you to succeed, right? And then a big thing for me right now that I constantly need to practice is cutting out the noise, right? Not just while you're trying to record a podcast at home and you're not sure if your 6-year-old just got home from school, right? But the actual noise of, the flood of emails that we get, the amount of content that's available to us, right? The amount of LinkedIn, you really triggered me when you talked about the amount of LinkedIn posts that you've saved, because like, oh no, how many of those do I have to go back to read?
I closed 3 browser tabs of articles I'm probably not going to read.
Right. Right. So, just a really great episode. Thank you so much for being here. Dan, the most important question.
Most important question. What are you reading? What's on your Kindle or on the bookshelf?
Oh my gosh. I am I'm on this health kick right now. I had some injuries last year and like a herniated disc, and it really was terrible. And so I hopefully today the Body Keeps Score is arriving at and I can start reading that. I like reading physical books. I just being able to like flip back to that page that I put the corner down on and highlight and all that stuff. But yeah, I'm on a bit of a health kick. So and then I'm also reading, and I forget the title of it, but it's kind of like a World War II spy, mystery thing. So, yeah, I'm trying to not be reading business books, but I do listen to a lot of business podcasts when I'm driving, but for reading, it's more personal these days.
I like it.
Love 'em.
Those are my favorite answers, because sometimes when people answer like, "I've got these 3 business books that I'm reading," I'm like, "I'm reading a fantasy novel right now." So
Yeah.
it's
We
great.
need to escape. We need to unplug and, like, you know, create the balance that everyone talks about wanting, right?
Right.
And I love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for today. In line with our goals of transparency and listening, we really want to hear from you. Sean and I are committed to reading every piece of feedback that we get, so please leave a comment or a rating wherever you're listening to this podcast. Not only does it help us continue to improve, but it also helps the show climb up the rankings so that we can help other listeners move, touch, and inspire the world just like you're doing. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next episode.